Everything we've been through together and all the great experiences we've had, we've lived together.
John Bon Jovi forged a five-man musical fraternity as fiercely loyal and combative as brothers.
It was a gang. It was a gang against everybody.
You fight these battles together, and the battles being, you know, real wars.
It's kind of like the rock and roll mafia. Once you're in, you can never leave.
Bon Jovi's mix of metal, magnetism, and madness kept them at the top of the charts. Blue-collar New Jersey boys, they worked hard for their fans' respect.
You know, nobody could be from New Jersey and make a record except for Bruce Springsteen. But they were so good.
To this day, I mean, they're really one of the great rock bands in the world.
They were working-class warriors turned rock and roll royalty, and they celebrated their success like kings.
We lived that life, man. Big.
Of all hours of the night, drinking, having fun.
Then he said, okay, I'm coming into town, come, you know, meet me at a hotel. And I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Lay your hands on me.
To the eyes of the world, Bon Jovi looked invulnerable, but within the family, the cracks began to show.
The band are drunk and high and bloated, and me too. I mean, we were a wreck.
They were toast. They didn't dig each other. They weren't going to talk to each other. It probably wasn't going to be a Bon Jovi after that.
Had all the success that you could ever ask for, and yet I wasn't happy.
This ain't a song for the broken-hearted.
The Bon Jovi brotherhood broke apart, but not for long.
Somebody says, like, oh, that's it, the band's broken up. It'll be back. Because it was just too big, and it was too good.
It's my life now or never.
Now, New Jersey's most notorious musical mob tell their tale of luck, loyalty, dedication, and debauchery. Bon Jovi, behind the music.
People that have grown up now that are leaders of industry or professional quarterbacks or guys in the White House that'll tell you how one of our songs influenced them, moved them, you know, did something for them. You go, wow, who knew?
In the early 80s, Bon Jovi exploded from hard-rocking New Jersey club favorites to become the biggest band in the world.
The seed of Bon Jovi was the New Jersey street rock and roll, the Springsteen model. But John added this element of heavy metal bombast.
Southside Johnny and Bruce Springsteen, Jay Giles band, that was the music that I related to. These were the characters I wanted to grow up to be.
Five Italian kids from New Jersey.
Exit 10.
Have a bunch of hits. Go away for a while. Then they come back. Happy ending.
Album sales topped 80 million, and every one went platinum. They charted 10 top 10 hits.
Bon Jovi!
8 of them from 1986 to 1989. But Bon Jovi was always more than a band. They were family.
These are guys who grew up, lived in the same city, hence there was a family, you know, Italian. This is like the Sopranos, for God's sakes.
I wear this charm that's very, you know, close and meaningful to the organization. When you get this, you're now part of the brotherhood. So I've seen, you know, these grown men, these rough guys, get this medallion and cry.
John was born on March 2nd, 1962, the eldest of 3 sons born to John and Carol Bon Jovi. John's family settled in Sayreville, New Jersey, a working-class town 30 miles south of New York City. Life in Sayreville taught John a valuable lesson. You kept family business within the family.
Everyone knew everybody. Couldn't get away with much in that town because it would get around pretty quick.
Still barely in his teens, John began jamming with several local bands and hanging out in the Asbury Park nightclubs that spawned legendary Jersey rockers like Bruce Springsteen and Southside Johnny.
There was no mamby-pamby music. If you really wanted to stick out, you really had to work hard on stage, and that's one of the lessons that we all learned, Bruce and John and I, that if you didn't go up there to kick ass, you'd get your ass kicked.
In 1979, John formed the Atlantic City Expressway. One of the first to audition was a 17-year-old high school kid, keyboard player David Bryan.
John and I got introduced because he went to Sayreville High School and I went to J.P. Stevens over the bridge.
The Expressway was a moderate hit with the Jersey locals, but it was John who commanded the spotlight.
I remember Springsteen coming to one of his shows where he was playing at the Fast Lane in Asbury Park. I was 15, I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. You know, this is like surreal.
He was always the one you watched. It always seemed to me like he was more deeply involved in rock and roll and more dedicated to it and willing to do whatever it takes to make it right.
I would go into school in the morning after being in a bar till 3 in the morning, and I'd show up at 8 and would doze off. All I could think about was getting to rehearsal after school.
But John did find something to interest him at school. In his senior year, he met a girl named Dorothea Hurley and fell in love.
She sat next to me in history class. We got to know each other a bit. We got together, and I just held on with 2 hands and never let go.
John had a steady girl and a steady gig, but he wanted more. In 1980, he got a job at New York's legendary Power Station Studios.
I'd have to go to the bank, go to OTB and place bets, go to the cleaners, go for a burger, you know, whatever somebody wanted.
Oh, he's a nice kid, you know, he's sweeping up or something, you know, getting coffee, I don't know.
I was like, dude, that rules, man, you know? I'm at the recording studio that Ozzy Osbourne does records at, you know? And then he takes me up there, and I open up the elevator, and there's Mick Jagger. And I'm going, duh.
Hungry for a record deal, John wrote and recorded over 50 demos from 1980 to 83. He was never shy about self-promotion.
John Bon Jovi Band right here. We have a date or two to plug to announce where you'll be appearing live in the future.
On September 3rd, we'll be at Zappa's in Brooklyn, New York. And we'll be at the Fountain Casino coming shortly. And check the Aquarium for more dates.
In '82, John recorded a demo of a song he wrote called Runaway.
Nothing came of it until I went to a radio station in New York called WAPP.
At the time, WAPP was New York City's cutting-edge rock radio station. In '83, a DJ put Runaway on a station-sponsored album of local artists.
Runaway was a fluke. It started breaking nationwide without a band, without management, with no representation, nothing.
With several major labels eager to grab him, Mercury Records made John an offer he couldn't refuse.
And that's when John called me up and said, we got a record deal. I'm putting the band back together. And I said, if you're lying to me, I'm going to kill you.
With Dave Bryan on board, John brought in local bass player Alec John Such and drummer Tico Torres.
I got a phone call from Alec. He says, I'm playing with these guys. You should come check it out. I met John. John came over in like 1.5 foot of snow.
The last member to join was a charismatic 24-year-old lead guitarist named Richie Sambora.
I learned how to play guitar from playing with the bands I love. I used to sit there and play with Eric Clapton, play with Johnny Winter, play with Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and that's the way I taught myself how to play.
Richie had left college in his freshman year to work full-time as a professional guitarist. He was an experienced pro by the time he caught Bon Jovi's act on stage.
And I went, yeah, that kid's a star. That could be something good. I can fit in here. He came and saw me and had the balls to walk up to me and say, I'm going to be the guitar player. And he was really persistent. And he said, all right, know these songs, blah, 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 blah. He gave me a demo tape and this, that, and the other. And of course, I came in prepared, like, and he was late. And by the time he got there, like, the band was sounding better than it obviously ever did. And he just walked in and went, okay, you're in. That was it.
John had gathered together a musical brotherhood of 5 kindred souls. To capitalize on his success with Runaway, the band was called simply Bon Jovi.
The timing factor was right for a band like Johnny, and the players were all there.
Rock manager Doc McGee had made a name for himself working with Motley Crue. In the fall of '83, he set his sights on Bon Jovi.
I think the pitch was, if you want to be the biggest band in the world, man, we can go do this.
Motley was happening, and our first record was coming out, and I went with P.T. Barnum.
Bon Jovi released their self-titled first album in February of '84. Initial sales were modest, but the Bon Jovi Brotherhood would soon build a loyal audience on the road.
I said, you play everywhere you can, with whoever you can, all around the world.
It was a gang. It was a gang against everybody, you know. And it wasn't against another band you're playing with. It was to win over the audience.
Coming up, the highest of high times.
It was total nudity. Girls were taking showers on the stage during the sets.
And later, the family struggles to survive.
If the band was going to break up, that would have been a good time. It was as down and dirty as you can get.
When Behind the Music continues. By 1984, Bon Jovi, a band of streetwise musical soulmates from New Jersey, prepared to take on the world as one family. With a debut album to promote, they toured the world, opening for bands like Kiss and the Scorpions. The band had been together for less than a year. Bon Jovi were young and hungry.
It was a struggle to keep it together.
It was, in a way, Bon Jovi against the world at first.
Dedication to the Bon Jovi Brotherhood proved a stronger bond than their commitments on the home front.
Tico and Alec were the ones that gave up a lot. They were both married. They needed income. They had bills to pay.
I owned a home. Most of the guys lived with their parents. It was a different financial situation for me and them. But I believed in it enough to go for it.
Tico felt rolling the dice with Bon Jovi was worth the risk, but feels it strained his relationship with his wife.
Well, she didn't believe in the gamble. You know, I said, well, no, I believe in this. There's something to this. I'm going to do it. And she didn't stick with me.
The pressures of constant touring didn't help John's 4-year relationship with Dorothea.
I ran away and joined the circus, you know, I went on the road. So she wasn't very excited about that prospect and said, you know, why should I sit here and wait?
Dorothea didn't wait. She and John broke up. John hid his pain from everyone, even the band. In public, he appeared in the arms of actress Diane Lane.
And I was running around with the starlets and playing the game that all the young kids do, and, you know, had a movie star girlfriend and all that goofy stuff.
He had his binges, like everybody does when you're a rock star, but I think he always knew that he would get back with Dorothea.
It was an unspoken pact among the Bon Jovi Brotherhood that they never discussed their feelings publicly. But pain bled into the songs on their second album, released in 1985.
On the second album, everybody had girl trouble or something. It was like, you know, it was a very depressing record.
You know, the point of view was so bad at that point. It's just, you know, you read the lyrics and you want to cry.
We toured for another 9 months all around the world. But as songwriters and as the alchemy of what the band was, we weren't making any headway.
And I was very concerned, personally. Very, very concerned about that.
It was a weird time in the band. If the band was going to break up, that would have been a good time. It was as down and dirty as you can get.
All I really wanted to do was get back home.
John went home to Jersey and Dorothea.
I went to her mom's house and did the whole, you know, you gotta come with me, you gotta be, you know, I want to be back together. And so, you know, she fell for it.
But soon after reconnecting with Dorothea, John headed to Vancouver with the boys in the band to record their third album.
We all moved into this condo together. Vancouver was the World's Fair was in town, and that city was just about to burst. It was just such a great feeling there.
The band spent every minute together. Studio sessions were grueling, but when the work ended, the Jersey boys tore up the town.
They have the best strippers in the world up there, and they've got, I don't know, half a dozen strip clubs that these guys lived in.
It was total nudity. Girls were taking showers on the stage during the sets.
I think even when, you know, we didn't go out and whoop it up, we always had something going on, like a card game or something happening. Of course, there'd have to be a few go-go girls around while we played cards or dancing for us while we played, of course.
We were messy, garbage everywhere, late night, stereos going at all times.
Our reputation got around in Vancouver. Our lines didn't work by the end of that record, you know.
Bon Jovi's 6 lusty weeks in Vancouver inspired the title of their new album.
We're sitting in the strip joint, and Doc McGee said, you know, I got this weird idea. What about Slippery When Wet? And we're sitting there going, what? Yeah, right, Slippery When Wet. You know, there's girls physically soaping themselves up naked in the shower, 3-song sets. Sounds like a good title to me.
In the summer of '86, Slippery When Wet slid straight to the top.
It was hard to get the records out and pressed and everything else because we didn't plan on it. I mean, I think they shipped 40,000 records of Slippery When Wet or something. So when it was hitting, you know, they were just pumping records out.
That fall, Slippery When Wet was the #1 album in the country. It eventually sold over 12 million copies.
I think we sold 1 million records a month for the first 6 months. You know, it was just, it took off and just went through the roof.
After 4 exhausting years, Bon Jovi was the hottest band in America. They celebrated the news as they did everything else, together.
We just like all huddled together. It kind of gave group hug. It was kind of neat that we hit #1 and we were the biggest thing, you know, since sliced bread that day. So that was kind of cool.
We became rock stars, you know, we became rock and roll stars like we always imagined.
Coming up, the Bon Jovi machine runs into a medical emergency.
It was like General Hospital more than it was a rock show. I mean, pretty soon it was like, you can't take all this stuff.
And later, a rowdy ride to Russia.
I was like, this is great, man. We're going to Russia, and, you know, I'm going to be on a plane with my buddies, and wow, how did all this booze get on this plane?
When Behind the Music continues. By late '86, after 3 years of rocketing success, Bon Jovi was not only the most popular band in America, they were an inseparable brotherhood. Their third album, Slippery When Wet, was #1, and their concerts were the hottest ticket in town. During the next 16 months, Bon Jovi played over 200 sold-out shows.
We used to go, we are Bon Jovi. We live nowhere, we play everywhere.
They played everywhere they could. They played as hard as they could every night, and that's what paid off for them.
Well, they're very good to this day. I mean, they're really one of the great rock bands in the world.
But while fame shined a spotlight on their lives, the members of Bon Jovi lived and played by a silent code of honor. Insiders didn't discuss family business with outsiders.
I think it was a part of the longevity of the band, not to do your laundry in public.
It's been tagged as the Jersey Syndicate, the secret society. You know, it's kind of like the rock and roll mafia.
The cliche backstage party pictures of who's screwing who and who's high and who's drunk. That's our business, you know. I don't know if it was the heritage, the Jersey thing, the too many years of watching The Godfather, whatever it was, you kept family business to the family.
Internal affairs were kept so private, few outsiders were aware that the band was straining under the weight of their relentless tour schedule.
John went from being this really willing to do anything guy to being burnt. I mean, you know, understandably so.
One reason for John's darkening mood was a secret he struggled to keep from his fans. John's determination to give his all on stage was seriously damaging his voice.
It's all the same. Only the name will change. Every day it seems we're wasting away.
All I could think about is I can't sing a note. I'll never hit the high notes on prayer. Having a doctor in there shooting you up with steroids, trying to rub out the throat, just talking like this all day. And worse, knowing that you still had another 4 or 5 months after that.
We were there for him as best as we could be for vocal parts, you know. I'd cover his parts, or she'd cover his parts. You know, you feel bad because that's his gig.
It wasn't the best you knew you could be, but there was no stopping the machine at that point.
With the help of a vocal coach, John finished the Slippery When Wet tour. But he and the band didn't rest. They went back into the studio and recorded their 4th album. Released in the fall of '88, New Jersey featured 5 top 10 singles and quickly became Bon Jovi's 2nd consecutive #1 album.
As a big, loud, metal power pop record, it's, you know, pretty much one of the best.
The band rallied for another monstrous tour, more than 230 shows in 16 months, visiting over 20 countries.
I'll be there for you. These 5 words I swear to you.
In the middle of the New Jersey tour, on April 29, 1989, 27-year-old John and his high school sweetheart, Dorothea, made a secret, unscheduled trip to Las Vegas.
I says, let's go get married. She says, why? When? Where? What, you know, what are you talking about? I said, let's go get married now. We won't tell anyone.
Didn't tell his managers, his security, didn't tell the band.
We didn't have a ring. We didn't have anything. We ran off.
I know you know we've had some good times.
And we did it for us and didn't give a damn. And I'll tell you, man, I got a lot of heat from it. You know, between the band, my parents, Doc, everybody was pissed off. And it took me a couple days to realize I don't give a shit what anybody thinks.
Weeks later, with his new bride by his side, John and the band celebrated a triumphant homecoming with a sold-out concert at the Meadowlands, New Jersey's biggest arena.
It's going to be something special here tonight. Giant Stadium, it's a homecoming, New Jersey.
This was the dream, this was the goal. We made it to the dance. This is it. I can't even speak. I was gonna cry about 4 times.
2 months later, Bon Jovi joined Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Skid Row, and the Scorpions in the Moscow Music Peace Festival.
Hey, this ain't Bill Glasnost, man. This is rock nose.
In the year the Berlin Wall would fall, they were the first Western rock bands allowed to play in Moscow's legendary Lenin Stadium.
We did it for kids and bringing doctors over to treat alcohol and drug abuse kids in the Soviet Union.
A year earlier, after pleading guilty on a drug charge involving the transport of nearly 20 tons of marijuana into the U.S., Doc founded an anti-drug charity. The Make a Difference Foundation sponsored the Moscow concert.
It was something I could get behind because I never was a drug user.
But despite the festival's anti-drug message, many of the artists on the bill failed to get with the program.
I was like, this is great, man. We're going to Russia, and, you know, I'm going to be on a plane with my buddies, and wow, how did all this booze get on this plane? Molly Crew were, out of all the bands on there, were the only ones who were straight and sober. We were just absolutely faced the whole flight. We renamed it the Make a Different Drink Foundation.
In Russia, the Cold War was cooling down, but backstage in Moscow, the band's egos were heating up.
You had all these bands who were fighting for vanity's sake. Who was going on after who? We weren't going to do anything other than close the show because we felt we were the biggest band in the world.
Please welcome to the USSR, Bon Jovi!
When John came up with this crazy idea, put on the whole Russian army suit, walk down the middle of the aisle and make this grand entrance.
When we hit the stage, I turned around and counted off the show.
1, 2, 3.
Bon Jovi conquered Moscow with their spectacular stage show. But the following month at the MTV Video Music Awards, John and Richie stole the show with just 2 acoustic guitars.
Oh, it needs a change every day. It seems we're wasting away.
On stage, John and Richie were never tighter. Off stage, their bond of brotherhood was showing signs of strain.
I think they definitely wanted to take a break. You know, they were thinking about starting families or had started families. And I think they were just craving a bit of normalcy.
When I would say, John, how you doing out there? His only answer would be, tired. I'm tired. I'm shot. And the tension grew between everybody.
We're sick of the music business, sick of each other. You know, it was like 4 successive tours and albums right in a row, and we just didn't know what to make of each other at that point.
In February of 1990, Bon Jovi staggered into Guadalajara, Mexico to finish the New Jersey tour.
They were toast. They didn't dig each other. They weren't going to talk to each other. It probably wasn't going to be a Bon Jovi after that.
We were a mess, physically and emotionally. You could look at us on that stage. The band are drunk and high, and we were a wreck.
And after 20 countries, we have to say goodbye.
And that's how that New Jersey tour ended. And there was nobody screwing anybody's wife or I screwed you out of money. None of that. But when that show was over, 5 guys took 5 planes to 5 different places. And there was no goodbyes. It was just pour me in my suitcase and take me home. And we were dead. Dead.
Coming up, the family faces some painful truths.
It was just getting uglier at the time. It's like any relationship, It started to go bad.
And later, Bon Jovi's code of silence is betrayed.
It's a shame that the laundry had to be done in public like that, because that's not the kind of band we are.
When Behind the Music continues. In the spring of 1990, after nearly 7 years of living and working together, the boys in Bon Jovi were burnt out, split up, and no longer speaking.
Everybody was saying I. There wasn't any we's in the sentences. When you start saying I instead of we, the party's pretty much over.
We just needed to get on with our own life and whatever that may be. I mean, I refurbished my bedroom to look like a Four Seasons. If that isn't dysfunctional because you're on the road, I don't know what is.
I realized I couldn't get in an elevator. I went home and told my wife, I said, I'm fine. She goes, you won't even get in an elevator without, like, freaking out. And I went, you're right. I've become claustrophobic. I've become all these things. I went through a very difficult time, and It was the physical and emotional burnout of running at that speed for really 86, 87, 89, 4 years.
Eager for a new challenge, John wrote the soundtrack to the movie Young Guns 2. The song Blaze of Glory was a #1 hit. John received an Oscar nomination and won a Golden Globe for Best Original Song.
And I think this is my outlet. Whenever I'm tired of the band, I'll run off and do a film soundtrack. All the storylines right here. This was the easiest record I ever wrote, which gave me a great vote of confidence to know I could do it without anybody.
On the last day of 1990, Doc McGee reunited the band for a New Year's Eve concert in Japan.
This should be fun.
The tension within the once inseparable brotherhood was overwhelming.
We were doing a cover story for Rip magazine, and they let me into the belly of their beast. And I came over to get the real story, because I went to Japan with the cover line for the issue in my head, Bon Jovi, dead or alive, ?
We wanted to go out and do pictures for this cover, so I asked them to sit opposite me, John and Richie, so I could shoot them while we were traveling. And neither of them said a word to each other.
We were going to have this picture where John was up front, looking like the superstar that he is, and there's Richie Sambora looking over John's shoulder, like he had probably felt like he was most of his career.
I mean, the session was probably an hour and a half long. Neither of them said a word. They just ignored each other.
In their silence, a rift between John and Richie was widening.
He's only admitted to me recently, or I've admitted back to him, that there was the, "See, what about me? I'm the 50% owner of those songs too. How come I'm not getting the notoriety that you're getting? The record company loves you more than they love me." So those things were getting to him.
In January of '91, John, Richie, and the group went their separate ways. John was confused and miserable.
I was out in California a lot, staying out in Malibu, what I called the gray summer. Would spend every day on the beach, drinking, miserable, not knowing why. Had all the success that you could ever ask for, and yet I wasn't happy.
You know, they always say once you reach the top, there's only one way to go. And I think that was a fear of his back then. You know, what can I do next?
John decided to hit the road, though not with the band. He took Dorothea, Doc McGee, and a few close friends on several cross-country motorcycle trips, hoping to improve his mood. The excursions were therapeutic, but John's relationship with his manager, Doc McGee, was starting to change.
He was just doing his job by promoting the band, making us the biggest band in the world. Everything he set out to do, he did. But he didn't see me diversifying like this and doing soundtracks and talking, hey, what if I got into movies? He wasn't seeing that.
The tension between John and Doc came to a head in the fall of '91 when Bon Jovi was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by MTV.
I knew it was for ratings, and I hated that idea. And I let Doc talk us into it, and the band begrudgingly all showed up, and we were just not happy guys.
This is not an award for anyone else but our fans.
We met on the stage, we got our trophies. I gave mine away to a girl that was standing on the side of the stage. Said, "You keep it, I don't even want it," and walked away.
After the show, John unloaded on Doc.
Got in the car with Doc and his wife and my wife. Expressed my unhappiness in no uncertain terms. And somehow the words came up about moving on or, you know, severing the ties. And I said, yeah, I think that's right.
And it was just getting uglier at the time. It's like any relationship, you know. It started to go bad.
After 8 intense and triumphant years, John Bon Jovi fired Doc McGee. John closed ranks and formed his own management company to handle the band's affairs. That same fall, Richie Sambora took charge of his own career with the release of his first solo album.
I walk alone in the darkness.
Eric Clapton played on the album, but it barely cracked the top 40.
Maybe I should have been, in hindsight, more radio-minded. I totally was thrown down from a soulful artistic place.
In the spring of '92, almost 2 years after their last tour together, Bon Jovi decided to give the band another shot.
In my heart of hearts, I said to myself, you know what, even if somebody says like, oh, that's it, the band's broken up, it'll be back. Because it was just too big, and it was too good.
It was a very successful band. There was no, I hate him. We were burned out on each other, but there was no weird why. This didn't make any sense.
I mean, it was a vast undertaking to get everybody back together, face each other, tell each other the truth, like, man, I didn't dig you then, I hated you then, or this, that, and all that kind of stuff went down. And once that got out on the table, everybody felt, whew, yeah, all right. And then we started to put the record together. We're back, we're pissed, here we are.
You go back to basics. Let's go back to 5 guys playing music.
In late '92, Bon Jovi released their 5th album. To promote Keep the Faith, they returned to their roots, playing a few dates at the small New Jersey clubs where it all began.
Keep the Faith proved to the world that Bon Jovi was back. That record sold 10 million records, and we went out and we broke open a whole slew of new marketplaces. So, you know, we looked at each other and went, oh my God, we did it.
And the second chapter of the band began.
After a lengthy tour for Keep the Faith, Bon Jovi released an album of greatest hits in '94. But it was a new song on the record that stayed in the top 10 for 6 months. Always spoke of love and loyalty, yet Bon Jovi's inner circle was about to face its most devastating betrayal. According to the band, close friend and bass player Alec John Such no longer played on the group's studio albums and had become a liability during live performances.
You're in a situation, you're playing in front of millions and millions of people, and there's a mistake happens and you go, oh God. First couple times you feel bad for him, and after that you start feeling bad for yourself and bad for the organization.
You got to a point where if you can't carry your weight, it's not fair to the rest of us. We couldn't sacrifice what we sounded like live. We could cover it up in the studio, but we couldn't take care of it anymore.
In the summer of '94, Alec broke ranks with the inner circle and spilled his guts to the press. In an article published in Raw magazine, Alec said that he would not be playing on Bon Jovi's next album due to John's constant criticism of his playing.
The fact that it was in the press, it's a shame that it was and that the laundry had to be done in public like that, because that's not the kind of band we are.
That fall, after over a decade with the band, Alec John Such was fired.
It was difficult to tell him, but, you know, I had him at my house one night and told him. It was, you know, it was that simple. I had to do it.
The band insists that dismissing Alec had nothing to do with the magazine article. Alec declined to be interviewed for Behind the Music.
It's a shame because none of us see him anymore, none of us talk to him anymore. But, I think of him a lot.
Coming up, a new album, a new movie, a new start.
I'm comfortable in the shoes I'm in. I know where I fit in, what I do, and how I do it.
It's my life, it's now or never.
When Behind the Music continues. By the mid-'90s, after enjoying the pleasures and surviving the pressures of their phenomenal success, Bon Jovi was reborn. In July of 1995, the boys from Jersey released their 7th album. These Days went platinum in the States and topped the UK charts. Bon Jovi played 42 countries and 72 sold-out stadiums, reinforcing their status as worldwide superstars. Never stronger as a team, band members also explored solo projects. Tico Torres' passion for art inspired a second career as a painter and sculptor.
And the wonderful thing is music's afforded me the chance to do that, where I don't have to be a starving artist. You know, I've done that starving bit a long time ago. So it gave me the chance to paint what my heart desired.
Dave Bryan began writing musicals for the stage, looking to make the leap from Bon Jovi to Broadway.
It was pretty neat to watch live actors, you know, singing these songs that you wrote in your basement, and moving a storyline and actually caring about a character. It was really a neat thing to walk down a new road.
Richie Sambora found himself walking down the aisle after falling deeply in love with TV star Heather Locklear.
I had a girlfriend track him down, and it took forever for him to call back and say, you know, Heather's interested, and really interested. And so he finally got a hold of me when I came to New York, and I went to his hotel. And nothing happened.
In December of '94, Richie and Heather tied the knot.
That's an American story for you, right? The kid who grew up on a dead-end street next to a swamp now has a Park Avenue apartment and married to Heather Locklear. You know, I mean, it is truly an American story.
Since the mid-'90s, John has balanced making music with making movies. In '95, he won acclaim for a small role in the film Moonlight and Valentino. John appeared in 6 movies in the next 5 years.
Now it's become a serious passion, you know, more than anything else in my life. And it was an accident. I didn't mean to do this.
In April of 2000, John made a splash in the big-budget action thriller U-571, the story of a dangerous submarine mission in World War II.
Down! Go! Down! Grab a chick to build for a sculling truck! Give me your weapon! Move, sailor, move!
Having worked with John as an actor, I can tell you this, and mark my words, he will be a major, major movie star in the next few years.
But solo projects haven't hurt the band. In June of 2000, Bon Jovi released their 8th album.
This ain't a song for the broken-hearted.
I think they're going back a little bit to their roots on this record. I think Bon Jovi fans are going to like that.
It's just a happy, fun rock and roll record.
It's my
If there's an underlying theme to this record, it's I'm comfortable in the shoes I'm in. I know where I fit in, what I do, and how I do it.
Like all brothers, the men of Bon Jovi have begun lives of their own. But whatever they accomplish individually, they'll still be 5 kids from New Jersey who vowed to become the biggest band in the world, and did.
Spend your Sunday with the biggest badasses in the biz.